The ships came on a Tuesday morning. Was drinking her third cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. She dropped the cup and ran to the window of the Seoul Defense Command building. What she saw made her blood turn cold. Hundreds of dark shapes hung in the sky like metal clouds. They blocked the sun and cast shadows over the entire city. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The smallest ones were the size of football stadiums. The largest one, sitting in the center like a king among servants, was bigger than some mountains. "Captain, report to the command center immediately," the speakers crackled. She was already running. The command center was chaos. Officers shouted into phones. Screens showed the same terrifying images from every major city on Earth. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow. The alien ships were everywhere. Admiral stood in the center of the room like a rock in a storm. He was an old man with gray hair and a face full of scars from 30 years of military service. He watched the screens with no expression. "How many ships?" he asked quietly. "Over 2,000 confirmed, sir," answered Lieutenant. She was young, barely 25, but her fingers moved across the keyboard without shaking. They appeared simultaneously across the globe. No warning, no detection before visual contact. "Technology we cannot understand," said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir." A new signal appeared on the main screen. An alien face filled the display. Felt her stomach twist. The creature looked like an insect standing upright. It had 4 arms, black shiny skin, and eyes that looked like broken glass. When it spoke, a machine translated its clicking sounds into Korean. "Creatures of the third planet, we speak for the Galactic Collective." The room went silent. Every person stopped moving, they watched. "The Collective has ruled this region of space for 10,000 of your years. We have brought order to 400 worlds. Today, your world joins our family." The alien made a gesture with 2 of its arms. Behind it, images appeared. Other planets, other species. Some looked like animals, some looked like plants given bodies. All of them worked in lines, heads down, wearing metal collars around their necks. "You will provide tribute. 30% of your population will serve in our labor colonies. Your resources belong to the collective. Your military will disband. Your governments will answer to us." The alien leaned closer to the camera. Its glass eyes seemed to look directly at. "You have 7 days to accept these terms. Resistance is not logical. We have conquered 400 worlds. None have refused us twice. The first time they refuse, we destroy one city as a lesson. The second time, we destroy everything." The screen went black. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Admiral turned to face his officers. "Well," he said calmly, "I suppose we have work to do." Stared at him. "Sir, they have 2,000 ships, we have 300. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe more." Nodded slowly. "Yes, they are stronger, they are more advanced. They have conquered 400 worlds." He paused. "But they have made a mistake." "What mistake, sir?" "They think we are like the others." He walked to the window and looked up at the dark ships filling the sky. "They think we will calculate the odds and surrender. They think we are logical." Looked up from her computer. "Sir, are you saying we should fight?" "I am saying we must decide what kind of species we want to be. Do we kneel? Do we accept the collars? Do we send our children to die in their minds?" He turned back to face them. "Or do we stand?" Commander, a broad man with a serious face, stepped forward. "Admiral, even if we fight, we cannot win. The math does not work." Smiled. It was not a happy smile. "The math never works, Commander. It did not work when our ancestors fought invasions with wooden spears. It did not work when small nations stood against empires. It did not work when ordinary people faced tanks with nothing but stones." He shook his head. "Humans do not fight because we are certain to win. We fight because some things matter more than survival." Felt something change in the room. Fear was still there, but something else grew beside it, something older and fiercer. "What are your orders, Admiral?" she asked. "Contact every military leader on Earth. We need to speak as one voice. And get me director from the Seoul Research Institute. If we are going to war against an enemy we cannot match, we need to find ways to hurt them that they do not expect." The next 6 days moved like a fever dream. World leaders met in emergency sessions. Old enemies set aside their hatreds. Russia and America, China and Japan, India and Pakistan. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on one thing: they would not surrender. Director was a small woman with messy hair and tired eyes. She had not slept in 4 days. Her team worked around the clock in underground labs, studying every piece of information they could gather about the alien ships. "Their shields stop energy weapons," she explained to Admiral on the 5th day. "Plasma, lasers, nuclear explosions, all useless." "Then we have nothing," said. "No," smiled for the first time. "Their shields stop energy, but they do not stop mass." She pulled up a diagram on her tablet. It showed a simple metal rod, about the size of a telephone pole. "Tungsten," she said, "dense, simple. We drop it from orbit at 15 kilometers per second. No explosions, no radiation. Just a giant metal stick moving faster than anything has a right to move." She looked up at the Admiral. "We call it the Hammer Protocol." Studied the diagram. "How long until it is ready?" "We have been secretly building orbital platforms for years, in case of asteroid threats," she shrugged. "We just need to point them at different targets. 2 days, maybe less." On the 6th day, the aliens grew tired of waiting. A single battlecruiser descended over. The people in the streets stopped and stared upward. The ship's weapons glowed with terrible light. Then it fired. 3 city blocks disappeared. Buildings fell like toys. Thousands died in seconds. The aliens expected screaming. They expected humans to run to their leaders and beg them to surrender. They did not expect Sergeant Major. He crawled from the ruins of his station, covered in concrete dust and his own blood. His squad was dead. His weapons were destroyed. But he had one thing left, one prototype that the research department had given them for testing. He lifted it onto his shoulder. His broken arm screamed in pain. He ignored it. The alien cruiser hung above him like a god. He pulled the trigger. The slug punched through the cruiser's belly, through 3 decks, and into its reactor core. The mighty ship shuddered, then fell from the sky and crashed into the harbor. Collapsed beside the wreckage. Rescue teams found him an hour later, still alive, still smiling. It was the first collective ship, destroyed by a primitive species in 4,000 years. The message spread across Earth within hours. The ships were not invincible. The aliens could be hurt. In his command center, Admiral watched the footage. Then he gave the order. "Tell the collective we refuse." 7 days had passed. The answer was no. And humanity prepared for war. The news of the fallen battlecruiser spread through the collective fleet like poison. On the command ship, Fleet Commander Cal stood before his communication screen in disbelief. Behind him, his officers clicked their mandibles nervously. This was not supposed to happen. This had never happened. Not like this. "One ship," Cal hissed. "One ship destroyed by animals with sticks." "Commander," his second officer spoke carefully, "perhaps we should increase the demonstration of force. Destroy 5 cities instead of 1. Show them the true cost of resistance." Cal nodded slowly. "Yes, they are clearly too stupid to understand numbers. We must teach them with pain." He did not know that humans understood pain very well. They had been teaching it to each other for thousands of years. What he did not understand was that pain made humans angry, and angry humans were dangerous. 12 battleships descended on Seoul. Admiral watched them come. He stood in the underground command bunker, surrounded by screens showing the approaching enemy. His officers looked at him with barely hidden fear. Admiral said quietly, "We should evacuate. The bunker cannot survive a direct assault." "We are not evacuating," kept his eyes on the screens. "Director, are we ready?" His voice crackled through the speakers. She was in another bunker kilometers away, her fingers hovering over a control panel. "Hammer protocol is online. Targets locked. Waiting for your order." The battleship stopped above the city. Their weapons began to glow with that terrible light had seen in, the same light that had killed thousands. Fire said. High above Earth, 23 satellites that everyone thought were for weather observation suddenly changed direction. Their hidden compartments opened. Inside each one sat dozens of tungsten rods, simple metal poles with no explosives, no guidance systems, nothing fancy at all. They fell 15 kilometers per second, faster than any bullet, faster than any missile, just pure mass and gravity doing what physics demanded. The first rod hit a battleship's shield. The shield, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing. The rod punched through the ship from top to bottom like a needle through paper. The ship exploded. 6 more rods found their targets in the next 3 seconds. 7 battleships died before they could even fire their weapons. The remaining 5 ships tried to flee. They were damaged, confused, their formation broken. 2 more fell to the hammer protocol before they escaped into orbit. In the bunker stared at her screens. Her hands were shaking. 9 ships destroyed, she whispered. 9 ships in under 30 seconds. Allowed himself a small smile. Contact Commander, tell him the defense worked. Now we move to Phase 2. Across the planet, humanity struck back. In America, hidden submarines launched missiles at collective landing parties. In Europe, ground forces used the old subway tunnels to ambush alien patrols. In Africa, guerrilla fighters attacked supply lines with weapons they built in secret factories. The collective had expected a quick surrender. Instead, they got a war. Captain led the first space counterattack. Her destroyer, the Righteous Fury, was small compared to collective ships. It was old technology. It should have been easy prey. Instead, used Earth's asteroid belt as a hiding place. She would wait for collective patrol ships to pass, then attack from behind with everything she had. When they turned to fight, she would run, disappearing into the rocks again. "This is not honorable combat," a captured collective officer complained. "You hide, you run, you strike from darkness like cowards." Smiled at him. "We call it being smart. You should try it sometime." Her tactics worked better than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, the Righteous Fury had destroyed 9 collective vessels. Other human captains began copying her methods. The collective commanders did not understand. Their war doctrine was built on direct confrontation, superior numbers, overwhelming force. They had always won because they were bigger and stronger. But humans did not fight like other species. They fought dirty. Commander became famous for a battle that should not have been possible. His fleet of 30 ships faced a collective armada of 200. The logical thing was to retreat. Instead, ordered his ships to spread out and go silent. For 6 hours, his fleet drifted through space like dead metal. No engines, no signals, no heat signatures. The collective sensors could not find them. Then, when the enemy armada passed by, ships came alive. They struck from every direction at once, targeting engines and weapon systems. The confused collective fleet fired at each other as much as at the humans. When the battle ended, 60 collective ships were destroyed, lost 8. "How?" Fleet Commander Cal demanded when he received the report. "How do they keep winning? The mathematics say they should lose. Every calculation shows their defeat." His science officer hesitated before answering. "Commander, I have been studying their species. I believe I understand the problem." "Explain." "They do not follow mathematics. Their decisions are based on emotions, anger, pride, love, hate. The officer's glass eyes flickered. They will sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts, freedom, honor, revenge. They do not calculate acceptable losses because they refuse to accept any losses at all. Cal clicked his mandibles in confusion. That is insane. Yes, Commander, but it is also unpredictable. Our battle computers cannot model insanity. We cannot predict what they will do because they themselves do not know until they do it. For the first time in his long life, Cal felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was fear. On Earth, Admiral addressed the United Defense Council. The room was filled with military leaders from every nation. They watched him with tired eyes and hoped they tried to hide. "We have won the first battle," said, "but we have not won the war. The collective still has thousands of ships. They still have technology we cannot match. They will adapt to our tactics. They will bring more forces." He paused, looking at each face in the room. "But we have proven something important. We have proven that they can lose. We have proven that we can hurt them. And now the whole galaxy knows it too." Stepped forward with a tablet. "Sir, we are receiving signals from occupied worlds, coded transmissions. They are watching our broadcasts." Nodded. "Good. Make sure our victories are seen everywhere. Let every slave in the collective know that the masters can bleed." Major, a soldier with cold eyes and a reputation for impossible missions, spoke up. "Admiral, what is our next move?" "We keep fighting. We keep winning. We make them pay for every meter of ground, every ship they send against us, every day they stay in our sky." His voice hardened. "And we wait, because somewhere out there other species are watching. Other slaves are remembering what freedom felt like. And when they see us refuse to break, they might just find their own courage." The council members nodded. Some were afraid, some were angry, but all of them were determined. Outside the bunker, night had fallen over Seoul. But for the first time in weeks, people looked up at the sky with something other than fear. They looked up with defiance. The war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to fight. 3 months into the war, the collective learned a new word. Spite. Major taught them the meaning. Island had fallen to collective forces in the second week of the war. The aliens built a command base there, thinking the island was secure. They were wrong. And her battalion of 500 soldiers landed on the North Shore at midnight. They had orders to gather intelligence and retreat. Simple mission, low risk. The orders changed when saw the labor camp. Thousands of Korean civilians worked under alien guards. They carried rocks. They built walls. They wore metal collars that shocked them if they moved too slowly. Children worked beside their parents. Old people collapsed and were dragged away. Watched through her binoculars. Her hands did not shake. Her voice did not waver, but something changed in her eyes. "New mission," she told her soldiers. "We take the island." Her second-in-command, Sergeant Minyu, looked at her with surprise. "Major, we are outnumbered 10-1. Command will not approve." "I am not asking command," lowered her binoculars. "Those are our people, our families. I will not leave them to die as slaves." Minyu was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "What is the plan?" "We have no plan. We attack until we win or we die. There is no retreat." The Battle of Island lasted 18 hours. Soldiers fought like demons. They used every trick, every dirty tactic, every desperate measure they could imagine. They rigged buildings with explosives and lured aliens inside. They played dead and attacked from the ground. They used the bodies of fallen enemies as shields. When their ammunition ran out, they fixed bayonets and charged. When their vehicles were destroyed, they fought on foot. When they were surrounded, they detonated their own positions rather than surrender. A captured collective soldier asked the question that had haunted alien commanders since the war began. "Why do you fight like this? The mathematics clearly show you cannot win this engagement. Surrender would preserve lives. Resistance only increases casualties. Was loading her last magazine. Her uniform was torn. Blood ran down her face from a wound she had not bothered to bandage. She looked at the alien with eyes that held no mercy. You burned my grandmother's village. You killed my brother you put collars on children. She slammed the magazine home. Every one of you we take with us is one less that gets to go home to your families, one less that gets to hurt anyone ever again. The alien's glass eyes flickered with confusion. This is not rational. This is not logical. This is just destruction for the sake of destruction. Smiled, it was not a nice smile. We call it spite. You should learn the word. You will be hearing it a lot. She left the alien tied to a post. An hour later, her soldiers liberated the labor camp. 3,000 civilians walked free. Lost 200 soldiers, but the collective lost their entire island garrison of 5,000 troops. The news spread across Earth, then it spread across the galaxy. On a mining world called 4, a prisoner watched smuggled footage of the island battle. The prisoner had no name anymore, just a number, 7742. He was small and gray, with 6 fingers on each hand, and he had been a slave for his entire life. He watched charge into impossible odds. He watched humans die on their feet rather than live on their knees. He watched freed prisoners embrace their liberators with tears running down their faces. "What species is this?" he whispered to another prisoner. "They call themselves human. They are from a small world on the edge of collective space. They refuse to surrender." Prisoner 7742 watched the footage again. Something strange happened in his chest, something he had not felt since childhood. Hope. Back on Earth, Captain had become a legend. Her destroyer, the Righteous Fury, now had 17 confirmed kills. But it was not just her victories that made her famous. It was how she won them. The collective had sent their best hunter ship to destroy her. The Blade of was the fastest ship in their fleet, commanded by an officer who had never lost a battle. He chased through 3 star systems. She led him into an asteroid field and went silent. For 2 days, she drifted among the rocks, engines cold, crew barely breathing. The Blade of searched and searched but could not find her. On the 3rd day, sensors detected the enemy ship passing directly overhead, close enough to touch. She fired every weapon she had straight up. The Blade of exploded. Its commander died without ever seeing the ship that killed him. When returned to Earth, Admiral promoted her on the spot, but she did not celebrate. She just asked when her next mission was. "Why do you push so hard?" asked her one night. They were in the officers' mess, drinking terrible coffee that no one had time to make properly. Stared into her cup. "My father was on vacation the day they destroyed those 3 blocks." She paused. "We never found his body." "I am sorry." "Do not be sorry, be angry." Looked up. Her eyes were dry but burning. "Every collective ship I destroy is a monument to his memory. Every victory is a funeral song. I will keep fighting until there are no more enemies left or until I join him." Understood. She had lost her mother in the Soul attacks. Her boyfriend was missing in action. Everyone had lost someone. That was the thing the collective never understood about humans. They thought that killing would break the spirit. They thought that pain would teach submission. They did not know that human grief turned into rage, and human rage was endless. The collective council met in emergency session. 12 elder species, rulers of 400 worlds, gathered to discuss one small planet that refused to die. "Their losses are catastrophic," one council member reported. "They have lost 30% of their military forces. Their cities are in ruins. Their infrastructure is collapsing." "Yet they continue fighting," another member observed. "Every time we destroy a force, 2 more appear. Every time we kill a commander, someone else takes their place. They do not seem to have a breaking point." The eldest council member, A being so old that no one remembered its original name, spoke slowly. I have reviewed our historical records. In 10,000 years, we have never faced a species like this. They are not the strongest we have encountered. They are not but they are the most stubborn. What do you recommend? Asked the representative. The eldest member was silent for a long moment. I recommend caution. We have always won because our enemies eventually calculated that surrender was the logical choice. But the humans do not make that calculation. They fight when they should flee. They attack when they should defend. They sacrifice themselves for concepts we do not understand. The council exchanged uneasy glances. Are you suggesting we cannot defeat them? I am suggesting, the eldest member said carefully, that the cost of victory may be higher than we are willing to pay. And I am suggesting that the longer this war continues, the more our other subjects will watch and learn. On 17 worlds, slaves were already watching and learning. The word spread in whispers, in code, in stolen glances and secret meetings. The humans were still fighting. The humans were winning. And maybe, just maybe, the masters were not as invincible as everyone had believed. 6 months into the war, the galaxy began to burn. It started small. A transport ship carrying slaves to a mining colony never arrived. Investigators found it drifting in space, its guards dead, its cargo holds empty. The slaves had escaped. No one knew where they went. A week later, a weapons factory on the planet stopped production. The workers simply refused to work. When the collective sent troops to force them back to the machines, the factory exploded. Someone had rigged the fuel lines. Then the communications tower on 3 went dark. Then the food shipments from the agricultural world of Minus stopped arriving. Then a collective warship was destroyed by its own slave crew, who crashed it into a military base before anyone could stop them. The collective council watched their empire begin to crack. This is impossible, the representative hissed. These species have been broken for centuries. They do not rebel, they do not fight, they have forgotten how. They have been reminded, the eldest council member said quietly. On the behind them, footage played on repeat. Admiral stood at a podium, his face filling the frame. His speech had been smuggled to every corner of collective space. They want us to calculate the odds. They want us to see their numbers and despair. His voice was calm but fierce. But they have forgotten something. Humans do not fight because we are certain to win. We fight because some things are worth dying for. Freedom, family, the simple right to look at the stars and know they do not own us. Prisoner 7742 had watched this speech 40 times. He had memorized every word. Now he stood in the control room of the 4 mining station, surrounded by other slaves who had chosen to stop being slaves. The guards are locked in the security building, his friend, a tall being with scales and kind eyes, reported. The communication system is ours. What do we do now? Prisoner 7742 looked at the control panel. One button would send a signal to the collective fleet. Another would send a signal to the humans. He pressed the second button. This is 4, he said, his voice shaking but determined. We have taken control of our station. We request contact with Earth forces. We want to help. The response came 3 hours later, a human voice speaking through a translation machine. 4, this is Commander of the Earth Defense Force. Your signal received. Hold your position. Help is coming. Prisoner 7742 felt tears run down his gray face. He had not cried since he was a child. He had forgotten how. On Earth, Admiral reviewed the reports with growing wonder. 17 worlds in open rebellion, said. The collective is pulling ships from our theater to suppress them. Their fleet in our system has decreased by 40% in the last month. Nodded slowly, it is time. Time for what, sir? Time to go on the offensive. He turned to face his command staff. We have spent 6 months defending our home. We have hurt them. We have survived. But survival is not enough. He pulled up a star map on the main screen. A red dot pulsed near the center of collective space. Prime, the of the species that demanded our surrender, the heart of the collective's power. His voice hardened. We are going to take the war to them. The room was silent. Then Commander spoke. Admiral, that is deep in enemy territory. We would have to fight through dozens of systems. Our losses would be extreme. Yes, did not flinch. But think about what it would mean. If we can strike there, nowhere is safe. Every collective citizen will know that the humans can reach them. Every slave will know that their masters can bleed. Captain, now promoted to Admiral after her string of victories, stepped forward. I will lead the vanguard. Admiral, this mission may be suicide. She smiled that cold smile she had become famous for. Every mission I have flown might have been suicide. I am still here. They are not. Major volunteered her ground forces. Commander offered his tactical expertise. One by one, the officers pledged their support. Was the last to speak. Sir, I request permission to join the fleet. Raised an eyebrow. You are my most valuable intelligence officer. I need you here. With respect, Admiral, you need me there more. She straightened her shoulders. Someone has to record this. Someone has to make sure the galaxy remembers what we did, no matter how it ends. Studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. Very well, we launch in 3 weeks. The human fleet gathered in secret. Ships from every nation, 800 vessels in total, hiding in the shadow of Jupiter. They were repaired, refueled, and loaded with every weapon humanity could build. Admiral addressed her captains via encrypted channel. Most of you will not come back. I will not lie to you about that. The journey is long. The enemy is strong. The odds are against us. She paused. But I want you to remember something. 6 months ago, they came to our world and told us to kneel. They burned our cities. They killed our families. They told us resistance was futile. Her voice dropped to something almost soft. We are going to fly into the heart of their empire. We are going to show them what happens when you try to break humanity. And we are going to make them understand that the price of attacking Earth is more than they can ever pay. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. 800 ships carrying the hope and fury of an entire planet. Behind them, Earth continued to fight. The collective still held positions on every continent, but the tide was turning. Human forces pushed back, mile by mile, city by city. In the occupied territories, resistance fighters grew bolder. They sabotaged alien equipment. They freed prisoners. They sent information to the Defense Council. They died in huge numbers, but more always came to take their place. On 4, prisoner 7742 and his fellow rebels held their station against 3 collective assaults. They had no training. They had no real weapons, but they had watched the humans fight and they had learned. Why do you keep fighting? A captured collective officer asked him. You are miners, you are not soldiers, you cannot win. Prisoner 7742 thought about the human admiral's speech. He thought about the footage of ordinary people charging into battle against impossible odds. He thought about spite. Because you do not get to tell us what we can and cannot do anymore, he said. Because we would rather die free than live as your property. Because every hour we hold this station is an hour you spend worrying about us instead of fighting the humans. He smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in years. And because somewhere out there, a fleet of angry humans is flying toward you, and I want to be alive to see what happens next. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Before them hung a world of dark cities and industrial complexes, orbited by hundreds of defensive stations. Admiral opened a channel to the planet below. This is Admiral of the Earth Defense Force. 7 months ago, you came to our world and demanded we surrender. You burned our cities. You killed our people. You told us resistance was futile. She paused, letting the silence stretch across the void. "We are here to return the favor." The Battle of Prime had begun. The Battle of Prime lasted 3 days. Admiral threw her fleet against the enemy defenses with everything humanity had learned about war. She used asteroids as cover. She sent suicide drones into the gaps between enemy ships. She ordered her captains to play dead, then strike from nowhere when the aliens came to finish them off. The collective had never seen anything like it. They had perfection, they had discipline, they had numbers. The humans had madness, and it was winning. On the second day, Commander led a flanking maneuver that broke through the orbital defense line. His ships poured through the gap, guns blazing, targeting anything that moved. 60 enemy vessels fell before the collective could reorganize. On the surface, Major landed with 10,000 soldiers. They were outnumbered by more than 50 to 1. She attacked anyway. Her forces moved through the alien city like fire through dry grass. They freed slave workers from factories. They destroyed military bases. They planted the Earth flag on the steps of the collective assembly building. "Major, we are taking heavy casualties," Sergeant Minu reported. His voice was calm despite the chaos around them. Enemy reinforcements approaching from the east. Checked her ammunition. She was almost out. Her soldiers were exhausted. They had been fighting for 36 hours without rest. "Then we hold until we cannot hold anymore," she said. "And then we hold a little longer." In orbit, Admiral watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The righteous Fury had taken heavy damage. Half her weapons were offline. Her shields were failing, but she was still in the fight. "Enemy flagship approaching," reported from her station. "It is Fleet Commander Cal. He is moving to engage us directly." Smiled her cold smile. "Good, I have been waiting to meet him." Cal's command ship was the largest vessel in the collective fleet. It bristled with weapons. Its shields could withstand a nuclear blast. It had never been defeated in 300 years of service. Ordered her remaining ships to clear a path. Then she flew the righteous Fury straight at the enemy flagship. "Admiral, this is suicide," her first officer said. "Maybe." His hands were steady on the controls. "But I told you, every mission might be my last, and if I am going to die, I am taking that monster with me." The two ships exchanged fire at close range. Energy beams scorched the righteous Fury's hull. Missiles exploded against her weakening shields, kept coming. At the last moment, she activated the emergency thrusters and rolled her ship sideways. The righteous Fury slid along the enemy flagship's belly, close enough to see the alien crew through the windows. Fired every weapon she had left directly into the flagship's reactor core. The explosion was visible from the planet below. Cal's command ship broke apart in a shower of fire and metal. The righteous Fury tumbled away, burning, broken, but still alive. On Prime, the defenders saw their flagship die. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the collective forces began to retreat. Major watched them run. She was wounded in 3 places. She could barely stand, but she was standing. "Send word to the fleet," she said. "The capital is ours." Admiral arrived with reinforcements on the 3rd day. His ship, the Soul's Vengeance, took position above the conquered world. Behind him came the rest of the human fleet, battered but victorious. He opened a channel that broadcast not just to Prime, but to every world in the collective. "For 10,000 years you ruled through fear. You conquered because no one dared stand against you. You believed yourselves invincible." They showed the burning wreckage of the collective's grand fleet. Debris floated like snowflakes above the alien world. Today that changes. Today you learn what every bully eventually learns, that there is always someone who will stand up, someone who will fight back, someone who would rather die free than live as a slave. His voice dropped to something almost gentle. "We are humanity. We came from a small blue world you thought was worthless. We are messy, emotional, illogical, and absolutely unstoppable. We hold grudges. We remember our dead. And we never, ever stop fighting for what we love. He leaned forward. Go home, tell your council. Tell every species in your collective what you saw here today. Tell them that Earth is not for conquest. Tell them that the humans fought back. He smiled the same cold smile that had become the symbol of human defiance. And tell them to be afraid, because now we know where you live, and we have very long memories. The war ended 6 months later. The collective, broken by rebellion and defeat, asked for peace on human terms. They returned all captured humans. They freed the species they had enslaved. They paid tribute to rebuild Earth's cities. Commander, now promoted to Admiral, represented Earth at the signing ceremony. She had watched friends die. She had lost everything and found something new to fight for. Now she stood in a room full of aliens who had learned to fear her species. My grandmother used to tell me stories, she said as she signed the treaty, about how our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and their own worst impulses, about how every time the universe tried to kill us, we just got angrier and smarter. She set down the pen. You thought you were conquering a planet. You were waking up a species. Remember that the next time you look at a small world and see easy prey. Admiral stood beside her. The righteous fury had been rebuilt, bigger and stronger than before, had been offered retirement. She had refused. What happens now? She asked quietly as they watched the collective representatives leave. Looked out the window at the stars. Human exploration vessels were already pushing beyond the old collective borders. They carried scientists and settlers and soldiers, all of them looking for what lay beyond. Now we find out what else is out there, and we make sure they know our name. On 4, prisoner 7742 was not a prisoner anymore. He had a name now. He had chosen it himself, a word from the human language that meant freedom. He stood outside the mining station that had been his prison for so long. The sky above was full of ships, human and alien alike, working together to rebuild what the collective had destroyed. A human soldier walked up beside him. She was young, with kind eyes and a rifle slung over her shoulder. Beautiful view, she said. I never thought I would see the sky without bars, he replied. For my whole life I believed this was all I was, a number, a tool, something to be used until I broke. He turned to look at her. Then you came, you fought, you showed us that the masters could lose. He shook his head slowly. Why? You could have surrendered, you could have saved yourselves. Why did you fight for species you had never met? The soldier was quiet for a moment. Because that is what humans do, she said finally. We see someone who needs help and we help. We see something wrong and we try to make it right. We cannot always win. We cannot always save everyone, but we always try. She smiled at him. Welcome to freedom. It is messy and scary and sometimes terrible, but it is yours now. Nobody can take it away unless you let them. Prisoner 7742, who was not a prisoner anymore, looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were exploring new worlds. Somewhere out there, freed species were building new lives. Somewhere out there, the collective council sat in their weakened chambers and remembered the day they made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had come to conquer a small blue world. They had demanded submission. They had burned cities and killed millions and expected the survivors to kneel. Instead, the humans had stood up. They had fought back. They had inspired 100 worlds to rebel and brought an empire to its knees. The galaxy had learned the meaning of fear. And humanity was just getting started. Far across the stars, on 1,000 worlds, people looked up at unfamiliar skies and spoke a word they had learned from their liberators. A word that had become synonymous with hope, with defiance, with the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Human. The word meant monster to some and savior to others. It meant rage and compassion, cruelty and kindness, destruction and creation. It meant a species that would burn itself to ash rather than bow, then rise from the ashes stronger than before. The universe was vast and full of wonders and terrors, but now it knew one thing for certain. Humanity was awake, and they were coming for the stars.